I'll project.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Beaverdale Books. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. You even got applause. Before we begin, I have to do my little shtick of telling you about upcoming events. And next week on February 17th, we have Daniel Henderson, and he is going to be sharing his book. I love this title, Rhythm and Pep, the Vaudeville Career of the Pearson Brothers. So doesn't that sound fun? Then on Friday, another one of our very favorite people, very favorite author, Callie White Van Bali, will talk about her latest book, Release of Information. And both events are at 6:30 p.m. And you can find all the details on our website. They'll be right here, 6:30. And if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, be sure to do that. Next, I am going to introduce Heather Gudenkopf, the Edgar Award nominated New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of 11 novels, including The Overnight Guest, Everyone is Watching, and her most recent Perfect Host. So give a warm welcome for Heather, and I'll hand it over to you.
And I'm so excited because I get to introduce Jenna Blum. And this is so special to me because, Jenna, we've been friends online for a long time. And so to be able to meet you in person is a real treat. So I'm so glad you're here with us.
Likewise,
Yes.
Thank you. You hear that? Okay, I'm watching you.
So please let me introduce Jenna. So Jenna is a New York Times and #1 internationally best-selling author of the novels Those Who Save Us, The Storm Chasers, The Lost Family, memoir, Woodrow on the Bench, audio course, The Author at Work, The Art of Writing Fiction, and the World War II podcast, The Key of Love. Jenna's 5th book and first psychological thriller, Thank You for Coming to the Dark Side, is Murder Your Darlings. As CEO of an online author interview company, A Mighty Blaze, and if you haven't checked that out online, you must. They do the best author interviews, which she co-founded during the COVID-19 pandemic. Jenna earned a reputation as a publishing industry community builder and innovator. Very true. As on-air host, Jenna has conducted hundreds of interviews for The Blaze, from literary legends to new voices. Jenna is one of Oprah.com readers' top 30 women writers. She earned her MA at Boston University in creative writing and has taught workshops for Boston University, Grub Street Writers, A Mighty Blaze, and numerous other institutions for over 25 years. She interviewed Holocaust survivors for Steven Spielberg's Survivors of the Shoah, did I say that right?
Yes.
Shoah Visual History Foundation, and is a professional public speaker, traveling nationally and internationally to speak about her work. Jenna is based in downtown Boston, where she's the proud human of her black lab, Henry Higgins. So please, everyone, welcome Jenna.
Thank you. Boy, that's hard to live up to.
It's amazing. Well, you're such a steadfast member of our writing community, and so we'll talk more about that, how you're such a great support to other writers as well. But what we're here to talk about tonight is Murder Your Darlings, and when I found out that Jenna had written a thriller, I squealed. I was so excited. And I think we contacted you because we wanted to interview you for the Killer Author Club, like well before the book was going to come out. We're like, you've got to come on the show. You've got to. We are so excited, and I'm so glad you did. So tell readers, what can they expect as you enter the dark mystery world of Murder Your Darlings?
Yes,
Tell us
thank
about
you.
the book.
Thank you, Killer Heather.
Yes.
Well, my favorite thing about having written a thriller is that now I can refer to myself as Killer Jenna.
Yes.
And I'm like not somebody who can even like stomp mice, so it makes me sound much more badass than I actually am, which is great. But you killer authors really welcomed me. They literally were the first people to say you have to come on the show, and I was so excited about that and so excited to be there. So Murder Your Darlings is my 5th book. It's my first thriller. It's more like psychological suspense, I would say. Like it's not like a mystery or a police procedural. The dead bodies are not terribly gruesome, but there are dead bodies. And I guess, should I do the elevator pitch for the book?
Yeah.
Okay, because like, how many of you have read this book since it came out like 3 weeks ago? Okay, some of you have done your homework. Right? Why are the students who did their homework sitting in the back? You guys should be in the front row being like, I read it. No, thank you for that. Book nerd. Yes, I see you, book nerd. Okay.
I'm a librarian.
So, yes, love it. So, Murder Your Darlings is about a mid-career female author who pivots from writing historical fiction, which she's known for, to writing a thriller. Funny how that could happen. And when we first meet her name is Simone Vetiver. Everybody calls her Sam. She's coming off her tour for her 4th book, and attendance has been soft. And she's under contract for her 5th book, which she hates, dreads, and despises because she's totally blocked on it and false starting and writing miserable junk. And she also is a year out of a divorce. And so she's really lonely. And she surprises herself at the end of her tour by thinking, I would give this all up if I could just find somebody to spend my life with. And lo and behold, as she's thinking this, into her DMs slides stratospherically successful, uber charming, super sexy Stephen King level novelist William Corwyn, who says, my dear, would you honor me by having dinner with me when I'm on tour with my book, All the Lambent Souls? And Sam is like, who is this guy? And he's so much more powerful than Sam. She thinks, what does he want? Why did he write me this letter? Does he just want to get into my pants? And she's like, I hope so. So she goes to dinner with him, and they have great chemistry, but they also have great literary empathy for the patterns of each other's weird, wonderful writer lives. And so they start a romance. And as they do, the bodies start to pile up around them. That's the thriller part. And Sam, who comes from a trauma background and can't always trust her own instincts, is forced to question, is William really all that and a bag of chips? Or are the murders being caused by one of his numerous female stalkers, including a very determined, very deranged bookseller, forgive me, stalker, named The Rabbit. Yeah, I was a bookseller, so I know how crazy all the booksellers are, and also quite strong from carrying books around. So that, in a nutshell, is what Darlings is about. That's what you can expect. And I guess I would be remiss if I didn't also tell you it's like completely spicily pornographic and has lots of F-bombs.
Yes, except, and we'll talk about the rabbit, except the rabbit, who is the stalker, doesn't swear. She will, like, refuse to do that, which is really funny to me because she seems like she's capable of a lot. So you've written this book in 3 points of view. We have Sam, William, and the rabbit. Why did you choose to write the story in this way, with 3 people telling the story? Did you know you were going to do it that way, or did the voices come to you in the night?
Yeah, it's so nice you think I chose that. Just to sound like a total lunatic. Originally, this was supposed to be just Sam's book. And just so there's no doubt about this, Sam is like 100% me. So when people are like, oh, how much of you is in your characters? And usually I demur, and I'm like, oh, there's a little of the author in every character. Sam is like 1,000% me. The things that happened to her in the book have not happened to me, or I'd be a lot more beat up. But her writing life is exactly mine, and her life is exactly mine, to the point at which I was doing a different podcast, and the interviewer looked over my shoulder and said, is that Sam Vetiver's fireplace? And I was like, oh, I forgot I put my apartment in the novel, and also my agent and my editor and my novel workshop, who comprised chapter 14, A Cocktail of Novelists, and they all chose their own names. So if you want to know what my writing life is like, I'm basically now an open book. So this was supposed to be really easy. Like, I was just supposed to write about my writing life. I knew Sam was going to have an affair with another writer. I knew that he would be stalked, and therefore she would be stalked. But it wasn't until one afternoon that I was lying around feeling sorry for myself, the way writers do sometimes, that I thought, what if the stalker had a voice? And I got up and went into my study and wrote in first person, which I was told in grad school never to ever do again. And I hadn't until I did this. I wrote the prologue of the book, which is there now verbatim, and it's from the rabbit's point of view. And it was like sticking my hands into a freaking socket. I mean, her voice was so electric to me and so alive. And she's really very gritty. She comes from a very underprivileged background, a terrible abuse background. She loves her books. She loves her readers. She loves her bookstore. And she also has a promise that she has made and she intends to keep it no matter what the cost. So anytime I sat down to write The Rabbit, I was like, oh great, it's a rabbit day today. It's going to be a fun day. So then I'm like, all right, I have two. I have Sam and the rabbit. Sam does something, the rabbit comments. It's like the affair. You get the same event, different points of view. Fine. So I'm writing my way through happily. And then I got to part 2. And William was like, greetings and adorations. It is I, William Corwyn, here to tell you how things really went down. I'm like, oh, Jesus. Now William wants to narrate part of the book. So I called my editor and said, William wants to narrate part 2 of the book. And what do you think about that? And she's like, I think it's great. Because William is very charming, very urbane, very smart, very funny, has a huge vocabulary. He'll never use a normal word when a $25 word will do. And when you peel all that back and you get into his perspective, you realize that there's a lot going on in William world. Like, he's a raging narcissist that puts Sam in great danger in part 3 from a number of different directions. So he kind of raised the stakes, and I never had so much fun in my life as writing that character.
He was so much fun because he is very charming, and you can see why Sam was, and all the women were like enamored of him. But you're like, from my behind the pages, I was like, red alert, run Sam, run. But he was so much fun to hear his voice, and so is he based on anybody real?
I mean, how many of you know narcissists, like a real narcissist? Just like raise your hand. Okay, like everybody. Okay, thank you for doing that. Like the last couple of crowds I had where I asked this question, like only a third of the people, I'm like, oh, come on. You all know narcissists. And I'm talking about it in the true, actual, like, psychological schema sense, not the, like, I'm waiting too long in the line at Starbucks, get your almond matcha tea thing already, you narcissist. So William is a legit narcissist. And not all of my relationships have been like this. I've had very good relationships with nice people, but I had a couple of relationships with narcissists. And they turned me into somebody I didn't like. And it kind of stuck in me like a fish hook. I think Sam said this at one point, that William is like stuck in her like a fish hook. It kind of shamed me, I thought, because what narcissists do, I then found when I sort of reversed researched it, is there's something called the narcissistic abuse cycle, where they will first, gender fluid, not gender specific, will love bomb you and say you're the best thing since ever. What if, and this is a game all the writers play, but William plays it with Sam and his life too. What if we have a life together? What if we unlock each other's prisons of loneliness? That's a William quote. What if you come to my island? Because he has an island called William Island. What if I bring you coffee every morning? What if you can get over your writer's block? What if we could be really happy? So it's this sort of dangerous part of the cycle where you get totally tractor beamed in. Then the narcissist discovers that you are human, and they're like, how can you have a nose? How dare you have a nose? And they like kick you out of the kingdom, and then they do it all over again. And when that happened to me in real life, I was like horrified by myself to find out that I would double down. Because you're not just losing a person, you're losing a life that had been co-created. And I'd be like, but wait, what about the raspberries in bed part, or the William Island part, whatever. So I kind of fused people together to create William. And the other thing about being in a relationship with a narcissist is it makes you be a very close observer of their behavior, because you never know when you're going to get ejected. So I had been watching this behavior for years, and to write William, I flipped it inside out into his consciousness, into what he would have been thinking. And that's why it was so delightful, because I knew that these guys, and again, not gender specific, but I did guys, I knew that they would be saying one thing and thinking another, and I think that's what makes William so terrifying, is that you see him on the surface saying these wonderfully charming things, but on the inside he's thinking something diametrically opposite.
Right. So well done. He was just fascinating to me. Fascinating. So the novel begins with an author going on, you said a lukewarm tour, and we've all been there. So, it was really fun as a writer to be able to, get into a book that is in the mind of a writer. And so how much of it was taken from real life or from author friends, or I just found it very interesting and fun to see, because I've been in book events where maybe one person shows up. Yeah.
Totally. This is not the soft attendance group. You guys are great.
Right.
Thank you all for coming out.
Yes.
Thank you for taking time from your lives to read books and hear authors talk about books. That means everything to us and to the booksellers, and it's such a great form of community. Plus, it's really nice out tonight. You could be hanging out in your bikini outside, throwing a frisbee around or something. And so, the joke about being on tour is, if the weather's good, nobody's going to show up. But if the weather is bad, nobody's going to show up.
Yep.
So it's kind of a crapshoot. I think, I've been doing this for a long time, since the last millennium. And you never know. You could walk into a library and have 250 people. The other night in Boston, I went to a store I had never known, and there were 3 people, and my thought is, people, again, took time out of their lives to come and do this, and they got out of their soft pants and, got away from Netflix. That's a big deal. And I put on the jeans, that's a big day, And I think since the pandemic, it's especially hard for people to break away from the spell of streaming and actually come and see other people. So a lot of what Sam experiences is what I had experienced across the board. Sometimes you go to a place and it's packed, and sometimes it isn't. William, on the other hand, always has packed audiences, and they're all women. So tonight we have 2 gentlemen, but for William, you wouldn't be here. It would be all women, and there would be thousands of them, throwing underwear at him and such. But I just made that up.
Right. So, and that brings me to also with the pandemic, and everything shifted online, all our events, and you created this wonderful forum, the Mighty Blaze. And so we've really, I know for me, I developed a lot of relationships online. So tell us a little bit, because that's a big part of the story of that kind of, not faux relationship, because I feel like I've met some really great people online, but what dangers and unexpected things can come your way by developing those relationships from behind the keyboard.
I sense another thriller, Killer Heather. Somebody shows up in person and they're not who you expect. Right. That's actually kind of great. I'm sorry to say that the only scary thing that happened as a result of running the Blaze is that I was working with a team of 35 people, and they were from all over the country. And at one point, one of the women I was working with came to Boston from Philadelphia, and she was much taller than I had thought. And I was like, "You're very tall." And she's like, "You're much shorter than I thought." I think so mouthy. And I was like, "Well, that's true. I'm quite short." I haven't ever met a person in person who wasn't as great as they were online, honestly. There are plenty of trolls online, and I get trolled quite a bit as somebody who's also politically active. But the Blaze has been nothing but a joy. As I'm saying this, I'm thinking of one author who I was like, "Oh, I hated that person," but literally one out of I want to say, if you give me $1 each afterwards, I'll tell you who it was. You have to pay me to make me talk, or I won't do it. But this we've done literally, something like 1,700 author interviews on the Blaze since 2020, and it's so rare to have an author just be disrespectful. I literally one, maybe two people, but the Blaze, for those of you who don't know, is something I started by mistake. The company I started on impulse in March 2020, when I was watching the pandemic shut down my friends' book tours. And I was just coming off a tour, so I was okay. But people had brand new books out, and if you can't connect with audiences, you can't sell your books. Nobody knows it's there. And I remember saying to a friend, I feel like lights are going out all over Europe. Like that's what we're watching right now, and each book is a little light. But maybe if we put them all together, when they come out, we can make a mighty blaze and draw readers over, and the readers will need books in lockdown. So that's what we did. I threw up some social media pages. Authors came on the pages to introduce their new books. We were like the only lifeboat rowing away from the Titanic like that week, and so the blaze got a ton of press. And then in like 3 weeks, I had 35 people working for me, and it was totally nuts. And we had 9 shows at one point, and we're still going really strong with like long track authors, debuts, crime time. My friend Mark's show with like eclectic fiction. So
yeah, all
it's been
genres,
so great.
really fun.
Genres,
Yeah, it's such a great space to learn about new and different authors, and some of the ones we've loved all along.
Yeah, I love it. Like Hank Flippy Ryan does a show. I think the great thing for me about doing the Blaze interviews is I do so much marketing. Like we all have to do so much writer marketing. And I love it. And I love being on tour, which most writers hate, but I love it. And I think when I'm talking to the authors about how they got their ideas and how they evolved, like what we're doing right now, it helps me sink a taproot down past all the noise and the social media and the world chattering at me into what's really important, which is that creativity and then the community.
Right. Which brings me to the Darlings, which is the writing group. And you run a writing group as well, you said, or you have. Are they similar, but then you put a twist on it with the shenanigans from Andrew?
Yes. So the reason I laughed is that I think everything in this book is really funny. And I'm like,
It is
I
funny.
forgot I put that other thing.
I howled many times while reading this book because it is really funny.
Thank you. I'm glad you think so too, because you write in isolation in yoga pants, and you're like, I wonder if anybody else is going to think this is funny. But I was snort laughing on every single page in a way I couldn't when I was writing about World War II. Or the Holocaust, or my dog who died, So this was very liberating. It was like the writing life was very weird and funny, and the rabbit's funny, and William's funny. So the reason I laughed about this is I do indeed have the writing workshop that comprises chapter 14. I've been running it for 25 years. I love these people. They are people I spend Thanksgiving with, like our friend Jane Roper. Like I go to her house every Thanksgiving and eat all her hors d'oeuvres. Like they're really family friends to me. So that workshop is in the novel, and Sam is teaching it. And then William also has a writer's support group that he runs called the Darlings. And it's in honor of his fiance from his graduate writing program who committed suicide because he wasn't paying attention to her feelings and the difficulties of being a writer. And so he goes around the country holding these support groups for writers, and the writers come and talk about how difficult it is to be a writer in the industry, and they're saying quite legitimate things, I will say. But William also has his own purposes for running the group, which you shall see.
Yeah, so good. So Sam's navigating a recent divorce. She's got creative paralysis and romantic temptation all at once. How did you ensure her emotional choices felt understandable, and even when they might have put her at risk? Because she goes to his island.
Who wouldn't go to William Island, though?
Yeah.
If you're invited to William Island, would you not go to William Island? The dark and tender heart of the book for me is really what I was talking about before, about how you get sort of ensnared in relationships that make you into a person that you don't like and behave in ways that you don't really recognize, but Sam does recognize it. Like Sam is a recovering codependent. And so what I was exploring in the relationship between Sam and William is the sort of perfect dance of awful toxicity between a narcissist and a codependent. Codependents tend to give too much. Like they're paying attention to other people's lives instead of their own, and like not in a nice, generous, I mean, they are nice and generous, but like in an extreme kind of like, that guy ran over your cat and you're still letting him live in your house kind of way. And Sam's husband, who she divorces, is a recovering alcoholic. And so she's put a lot on the line there and is just out of that and saying, I'm going to maintain my own dignity. And then William comes along and presents so beautifully. And then William, like most narcissists, takes and takes and takes. So when you have an extreme giver and an extreme taker, it's a very hard pattern to break. And what I'm hoping that the book does, for all of its to me, amusing, commentary on the publishing life and the writing life and all the sexy time and all the other things, is it asks, how do you break a pattern? Like, is it possible to recognize a psychological pattern? And if so, can you break it? And if so, what is the cost? So I was trying to do what the writers do when your character is going into the dark basement and you're like, don't go in the dark basement. And even the character's saying, I really shouldn't be going in the dark basement. And they go in anyway. You have to kind of show why she's doing that. And so I was trying to tuck that into the underpinning of the book, which with a thriller is hard. Like, you don't have a lot of space for psychological, like, portraiture. You kind of have to do it in shorthand, I think.
Right. And the island, let's talk about that. Very Shining-esque, Stephen King-esque vibes. Tell us, is it a real place? Or is it...
William Island.
William Island.
I find William so delightfully ridiculous. I had a reader write to me and tell me he was deliciously vile, which I think I'm now going to make into a temporary tramp stamp.
Oh,
I
there
love
you
it
go.
so much. Which he is. But in the first draft of the book, William did not actually live on an island. But it sort of morphed as we went along, and suddenly he lived on a very remote island in rural Maine. So you have to get there on a highway, and then on a local road, and then on a logging road, and then over a causeway that he has gated with a gate with big spikes on it, like you would put heads on after you cut them off somebody. And he has done this because he has so many super fans, and he actually has legitimate stalkers that he retreated to his island, William Island. But I also find William Island to be incredibly funny, and it was very useful to, like, it's so tropey, like the whole book is like very tropey, and that was a great thing for me after writing
So much fun.
historical fiction and literary fiction and trying to pay homage to, like, really important societal movements, and I'm just like, yeah, there's going to be an island in this, and they're all going to be trapped there during a blizzard, and the villain is going to have an Oscars confession speech. Like, I just leaned into it, and it was so much fun. But when you have an island in a thriller, it means people tend to get stuck there. So that's why also he ends up on an island.
So when you are writing your historical novels, I imagine there's tons of research, just tons. What was the difference in the kind of research that you may have had to do or not do with the thriller, the psychological thriller?
Oh my God, it was so much easier. So I do like 10 years worth of research for historical fiction for each book. Not exaggerating, because when you write historical fiction, you're standing on a bedrock of people's actual lives and memories and things that happen to them. And so I try to be meticulous with my research long before I even start writing the book. This one I was like, I've been writing since I was 4, and I've been a professional writer since I was 16. So, like, all I had to do was just sit down and unpack everything about my life and just put it on the table for readers. Like, here's the tour, here's the writer's block, here's the contract, here's the publishing house, here's the cheeseburger I eat after every event that I do, and I sit in my hotel in my Spanx and eat that. And it was delightful, and I hope you guys like sort of gobbling up the writer details. The only research I did do was on narcissistic personality disorder, because I wanted to make sure I was getting that right, and also a little bit on codependency too, and what causes that.
So well done, and such a fun read. So you're in the dark side now, which I love to keep saying. Are you going to stay? Are you staying in this genre, or are you going to, because you have been able to cross that bridge to different genres, which isn't always easy for authors. Sometimes we kind of get stuck, and not necessarily stuck, but we stay in our lane. And you've done this so well and so successfully. So what's next?
Like being typecast, I guess. I just realized as you were asking that I'm basically William in that one way. Because William writes his books in different genres every time, and all of his protagonists are women, because he's like, because I love women, I'm a giver. But I think I like the dark side. I love the thriller side, but I know as soon as I say, like, yeah, I'm going to write another thriller, then I'll be writing, like, sci-fi or something. But I really like it, and I think all of my books have been dark. Like, my historical fiction has not been light stuff. I do write about World War II and the Holocaust. I write about mental instability for my second novel, which was contemporary. When I did write a memoir, it was about the last 7 months of my dog's life, and then he died. So I feel like I've been writing serious, dark stuff for a long time, and also most of my novels have a lot of sexy time in them, and now the people are just wearing different clothes. But what I like about the thriller lane, and you're so much more expert about this than I am, is there's a sort of a puzzle to it. Like when you read thrillers, and when I read thrillers, you're pitting yourself against the author trying to figure out the whodunit, what's happening, what is the reveal, you know there's going to be a twist, can you see it coming? And to my great surprise, I really enjoyed putting that together, like taking a scenario and thinking, what if? And having those marks on the stage to hit, like an actor, like you have to give that to readers in the genre. I really love that. And also I'm getting older and I don't want to spend 10 years writing every single book because, I'd like to write more books than that. So I have like 3 more thriller ideas rolling around in my head.
Lucky for us.
No, thank you. That's so nice for a killer.
So this is a question I always have to ask is, did you plot the book out then? Did you know where it was going to go? Is that part of your process?
I did. I want to ask you the same question because I know there's no right or wrong answer to this. And I have container store brain. Like I drove past a container store today and I was like, oh. But I have to know where I'm going. And I always know the last scene of my book and in fact the last line, and then like all I have to do is elbow my way across the desert through the 350 pages to get there. So I always have an outline. I write it by hand, then I type it up, then I paste it on my wall next to my laptop, and then it shapeshifts over time. So after I finish the first draft and I realize that half of what I've written doesn't really work, I cross those scenes out, I write new ones, there's a new outline. Each of my books before this had like 11 outlines. This book had 1 outline, but the points of view were different than I thought they were going to be. So I knew from point A to point Z what was going to happen in this book, but I turned the perspectives on those events inside out into the rabbit's perspective or into William's perspective, so that was surprising. Like, are you a plotter or a pantser?
I have evolved over the years. I started out as a complete pantser. Like I had an idea and just wrote and got myself into a lot of messes that way, but it seemed to work for me. But I got to the point where a few books ago my editor said, have you ever thought about plotting your books out? And I'm like, I am now. And she's completely right. And so, but what I found it's really helpful for me is that life gets in the way sometimes, and it gets busy and family things come up and things get wild, and you might have to step away from your manuscript for a while. And that happened to me a lot in the middle of my career. And I would try to step back in, and I didn't know where I was at. I didn't know where I was at in the process of the book. And so it took me a long time to get acclimated and grounded again. My last 3 books I have outlined, it still changes completely, but it gives me a foundation to work off, which I really appreciate. So, but there's still those magic moments where, like when you were writing, you discovered, oh, this voice needs to be heard.
Right.
And so to be able to not be so tied to it, that those magic moments. And then I was going to say, you know who else writes the last line of their story before they write anything else?
Who?
John Irving.
Oh, yeah, me and John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He always has to know what his last line is going to be, right?
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling me that. We interviewed him on the Blaze, maybe the second week of the Blaze, because he was imprisoned in his home, and so we could get to him. And we all, like, I had this huge team of people producing this interview, and we were doing, like, Zoom to Facebook, which was notoriously glitchy, and everybody in every household was doing shots of bourbon before he got. He was probably like, "You're all a bunch of drunks."
I watched that show.
So
it was really good.
He was so kind, you know. But we were all like, "Oh my God, it's John Irving!" Oh, he was lovely.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So I tuned in that night. I remember that.
Thank you.
So, yes.
Yay.
Well, I know that I have a million more questions, but I want to make sure that the people in the audience get a chance to ask theirs as well. So what questions do you have about reading, writing, the writer life, anything that Jenna can answer for you?
I'm literally an open book, so you can ask me anything. Also, I should point out that one of my college roommates is here, Laura Mate, and so if you really want to know anything about me, you should ask her. Because she knows all the dirt, and I have no memory because I basically drank my way through college.
So we know who to go to for the real details.
Yes.
No secrets.
Yeah.
So, just a basic question, and I think it's asked at every interview, but did you choose your cover?
Oh, I love that question. So the question is, did I choose my cover, which I love, actually, which is so unusual for a lot of writers and for my books. Thank you. Kind of. I have veto power on my covers, and that's, unless you're like Anne Patchett, who's like, I had a friend commission a painting for my cover, and then it's her cover. Like, most of us just get the veto power. And so the first cover for Darlings was, it was kind of like cozy mystery. It was very clever and cute, and kind of only murders in the building looking. And I was like, no. And my agent, who is French, in the book her name is Mireille, in real life it's Stephanie, she called my editor and she was like, may I remind you, Sarah, who in the book is Patricia, that there is pornography on the first 2 pages of this book. We do not think that this cozy mystery is the right vibe. So then they went back to the drawing board, and then they came back with this cover, and I was like, oh my god, okay. I was like, yeah, I like it, it's fine. And then I noticed that there was a little rabbit in the nib of the pen, and I was like, oh my god, it's so great, it's so perfect, I love it so much. It's called also a double fake cover because a graphic artist friend of mine told me this. Other people have looked at it and said, that's like a woman's hips. And then like a rabbit in the middle is like, ooh. So I was like, oh, my sister calls it, forgive me, the rabbit vag cover. She's like, you have a rabbit vag cover. I'm like,
I'm just seeing that
intentional.
now, and I will never unsee it.
I know, I'm sorry. I mean, as you know, awful as I am, like, I had not even noticed that until somebody pointed it out to me, and it was like, I was like, oh, you're right. Thank you. So it's kind of a Rorschach test, this cover, I would say. Heather and I, like, the killers are pure of heart. We were like, oh, I didn't notice that at first. So, but I do love it, and I love the fact that it is like this really strong graphic and that it can be looked at in different ways. And yeah, I'm very pleased with that.
Good question.
So rarity. Great question.
That brings me to the title, though. This is a great title. Was that yours, or was that a team effort?
No, it was mine. So I love the writing adage to kill your darlings, and I use it a lot in workshop, and it basically means that you need to axe everything that's beloved to you in the manuscript if it's not serving the story. Like, you don't have to kill everything just because you like it, but if it doesn't serve the story, then you have to axe it. And I was like, how wildly appropriate. And then when I was researching it, the book is really about appropriation and like the most extreme form of appropriation. And most people know the phrase as kill your darlings. But originally it was murder your darlings. And the man who invented it, I did this rabbit hole dive on this, his name was Sir Arthur Quiller Couch. And in like 1914, he gave a lecture about good writing and that you should murder your darlings. And then William Faulkner appropriated that and said, kill your darlings. And then Stephen King appropriated it further and said, kill your darlings. So I'm like, I'm taking it back. I'm going to go back to the original, Murder Your Darlings. So,
Perfect title.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I love how you're talking about, you just embraced the tropes in this book. It seems like you sort of gave yourself permission to just enjoy writing. And as somebody who's written a number of books, you're saying, like, after all this time, I did it this way. Talk to me a little bit, or talk to us a little bit about, like, what did you hit in your life where you're just like, you know what, I'm going to go back to the part where I had fun?
Yeah, what a great question. I never had so much fun writing a book as I did this book, honestly. Like, there were not any false starts. The only false starts in the books are Sam's false starts. Actually, that's not true. I had one awful day of writing with this book where I was trying to stepladder up the rabbit's menacing actions. And I was like, I need something to throw in here. So I had her break into Sam's apartment and put a Barbie in a microwave And then I had to do this, I had to do all this research on what happens to Barbie in a microwave. It's not good.
Did you try it in person? I mean, did you like?
I did not, no. Like, again, like, I'm too neat and tidy in my apartment. I couldn't melt a Barbie, but I did spend some time watching Barbies melting in microwaves. And so I wrote this whole scene about this, and I'm like, that was so dumb. Like, it was so campy, and I want her to be genuinely scary. That's, like, about as far astray as I went with this. And it was just such a joy. It was a joy to write about my life. I've been really lucky to have a writer life. Like, the writer life is very strange in a lot of ways. Like, it doesn't have the same rhythms. It doesn't have financial security. But it has these moments of, like, pure magic. If you're lucky, it has community too, where like people believe in the imaginary people that you believe in, and so you all have this great cohort. And then spending your time making something, like, it feels like drawing it down out of the air through your head, and then it becomes an object that people can hold with their hands. Like, that to me is just so miraculous. So I've always enjoyed that, but like writing about that in that very meta way was great, and I laughed every day, and I don't know, it was really fun. I don't know if I made a conscious decision to do that, actually. Like, I was working on historical fiction that my editor loved, that my agent loved. It was about USO singers, which is a great concept, and I kept writing the scenes and backing out of them and thinking, I have no idea why the main character did that. Like, I just could not emotionally connect to it at all. And meanwhile, I was having this idea about the murderous writers, and I'm like, that's just so funny. And I would sit there and like snort laughing about it. And the reason that I did this, how many of you read The Plot by Jean Hanff Korelitz, which is a great book about publishing, and Jean is very smart and very funny. And I read this book, and I was like, wait a minute. I can ask Cheeseburger. I was like, if Jean Hanff Korelitz can write about writing, why can't I write about writing? So I called her. I got her number from a friend. I'd never met her before. And I said, when you switched from writing literary fiction to writing thrillers, did you get pushback from your publisher? And she said, I just write what I write, and other people market it. You should write what you want. And I was like, great, I will. And if it goes badly, it's on you, Jean. So I wrote 100 pages of this and sent it to my agent and waited for like an agonizing week while she got back to me, and like crickets in the inbox. And when she did, I was actually teaching my writing workshop, and I got her email at intermission, and I was like so relieved, because she said, honestly, she was like, Jenna, when we talked on the phone, she was like, this is the smartest thing you have ever done, I think, because your historical fiction, you are hiding your own voice. And it's true, like the historical fiction demands a more austere, controlled narration. I'm not going to say like, wow, World War II is bad AF, like there's just not a lot of buoyancy there. But Stephanie said, I have worked with you for 24 years, and it is the first time I've heard your real voice in a book. And then I was just so happy to just spend the next year like snort laughing my way through the book and like having a great time with it and leaning into the tropes. I was like, it's supposed to be tropey. It's a genre book. You're supposed to take advantage of these ridiculous things, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. That we go through them as we're plotting and planning, and like which ones fit the story that we want to tell. So.
I defer because again, like I'm a newbie in this world.
I know with my fellow Killer Author Club crew, we're like, how did she nail this the first time? I mean, that's fantastic.
Thank you. That's so kind. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear
it's true.
Okay.
How long do you take between books?
Oh, way too long. How long do I take between books? With the historical fiction, it took a long time because I was ideating. I was coming up with ideas that I could live with and then researching. But I also am not somebody who can multitask in the writing. Like my writing life is like crop rotation. So I'm thinking about the idea, researching it if I'm doing that. Then I'll write it, so I'm kind of on lockdown or on a deadline. And then I get to do what I'm doing now. I'm like sprung from my chair, and I get to go out and talk to real people. And I know a lot of writers write when they're on tour. I do not at all. Like I get room service on tour, and then I talk to real people instead of imaginary people, and that's much more fun. And then I go back to the desk. So Typically, it takes like 5 years between books, but again, because I'm writing something that will require, I think, hopefully less research, it will be less than that. I'd really like to crank them out faster.
Well, we want you to as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What other questions do we have?
Yes.
Where are you going from here, and where have you been on this tour?
That is a great question. Where are you going? Where have you been? I started out in New England because I'm from Boston, where I read my very pornographic prologue and gave people pearls on the way into the event so they could clutch the pearls while I was reading. It's pretty spicy. And then I did some local Massachusetts and New Hampshire events, and where I talked to you from.
Yes.
In the hotel that had no heat
Yes,
on an 8
poor
degree night.
thing.
Yeah, that was pretty terrible. And then I went to Florida, which I will return to a couple of times. And on this leg of my tour, I'm doing like this lovely Midwestern part of my tour and Great Plains. So I started in Wichita, where I had lived for 3 years. And then I went to, oh my God, where did I go? Indianapolis, rural Indiana to a library, Cleveland last night, and then here, which is so lovely. I love Iowa. And then tomorrow I'm going to Minneapolis, which is a big deal for me because my mom is from Minnesota, my grandma's from Minnesota, my great-grandparents settled part of the state. I had a house there for many years that I sold a couple of years ago in southeast rural Minnesota, and I lived in Twin Cities for 6 years. And especially now with what has been happening there politically, if I hadn't been already scheduled to go there on tour, I would have gone anyway. It's really, really important to me. So I know I'm going to be like a little weepy about it, but I can't think of a better way to spend my Valentine's Day, honestly, than going and connecting with friends who are there and visiting the memorials, and then having a event the following day in Stillwater, Minnesota. And then I go to Milwaukee, and then I go home, and then I go out again to Washington, and I go to Florida and everywhere. Columbus, Los Angeles. I don't even know. I actually have to look at my phone to remember where I'm going. So, yeah, which is fun. It's fun. It's kind of crazy. It's fun.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, well, oh yes. Yeah.
Because we are in Iowa, I think there's a character in your writer's workshop that was maybe named Iowa. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, that's Jane Roper, actually, because she went to the Iowa Writing Workshop. Yeah, so, yeah, I love, yeah.
I think you were like calling it a trope, but I found it like an Easter egg, and that was really fun to read, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. That's so funny. Yeah. So one of our friends went to the Iowa Writing Workshop, and so she chose that name, which I loved. And I mean, I loved everybody like choosing their own names. If I ever put you in a book, you can choose your own names, and I let them keep it. The only person I did not was my friend Mark, whose name is Mark Cecil, and he wanted to be called Cecil B. DeChill. And your name is Jake. Yeah, the Easter eggs are fun. And I often, because I'm not great with names, I like put real people's names in the books and then forgot that I put them in too. So there are many Easter eggs everywhere. People are like, oh my God, I'm in your book. I'm like, you are? Oh, great. I'm so glad, so don't be surprised. Or maybe in there sometime.
That's great.
What books do you like to read when you're not writing?
I read a lot for the Blaze. So because I'm interviewing people, I get a lot of advanced reading copies. So, I mean, there's a new Anna Quindlen book out that I'm like dying to get my hands on. I love like contemporary fiction. I get sent a lot of historical fiction, but it has to be the right era, and I'm kind of saturated with World War II fiction at this point. So you can send it to me, but I don't know if I'm going to read it. So I do a lot of advanced reading stuff. I also should plug that like half the people in my writing workshop have books out this year. So when I'm done with my own tour, I'm going to be like traveling with other people to interview them for their books, which is so great. So I'm kind of reading those. But I read contemporary fiction, literary fiction, a lot of thrillers now because I'm trying to stay in the zone. And while I'm traveling, like all I can read apparently right now is Frida McFadden books, which is easy because she has 47,000 books. And in every airport bookstore, there are like 47,000 Frida McFadden books. So today, like while I was flying up here, I read like half of one in one sitting. I read like 175 pages, and she writes like fun thrillers because you can sort of see the puzzle underneath the shape of the story. But her characters are like a little sarcastic and funny, and I enjoy when there's a personality on the page as well. So yeah, I read Heather, obviously. Who are you reading?
Oh my goodness, I'm like you. I get a lot of advanced reading copies. So I'm reading. CJ Box has a new one coming out in a couple weeks, so I get the chance to interview him when he comes to the Cedar Rapids area, and so it's a lot of fun. Oh my gosh, so many. Lisa Unger has a new one coming out very soon. Love that one. So yeah, but it's fun to get a sneak peek into some of your favorite authors and new authors as well.
Yeah.
There's one on my list that I cannot wait to read. It's called Beth is Dead, and I can't think of the author's name yet. Oh, yeah, who's the author?
Katie Burnett.
Katie Burnett. It's based on Little Women, and as if it were a murder mystery. Yeah, so I can't wait to read that one. It's right up my alley.
That's really cool. It's a mashup.
Yes.
This is like the thing now in our industry is the mashup. Like everything has to be a mashup. I have had this book described in many ways, and one of them is as a spicy romantic murder mystery. And I was like, if you think that's romantic, okay, it's just whatever. But yeah, it's a big deal to be squashing stuff together like Little Women and death.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, everybody, thank you so much. Let's give Jenna a huge round of applause for bringing her time and talents to us here in Iowa. We're so grateful.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be interviewed by you.
Oh,
Heather.
wow. Thank you.
Thank you.